Okay, in Matthew 5:19, Jesus said, do and teach God's law. Here's God's law number 31. When we go to war. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Jim McCotter. Here's God's law number 30 from God's law book of Deuteronomy 20, verse 1 through 20. Quote, when you go to war against your enemies and see an army greater than yours, do not be afraid of them, because the Lord your God will be with you. When you are about to go into battle, the priest shall come forward and address the army. He shall say, today you are going into battle against your enemies. Do not be fainthearted or afraid. Do not panic or be terrified by them, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory. That's Deuteronomy 20, the first 4 verses. God said, when you go to war. He did not say, if you go to war. Clearly, God is not against ever going to war. There is just war and unjust war. A just war is when a city, state, or nation rises up against you to attack you or threaten to attack you. In such case, even a preemptive attack is permitted. The Lord led Joshua and David to have preemptive attacks for Israel's safeguarding. If it is a just war, quote, the Lord your God will be with you, end quote. So then, quote, when you see an army greater than yours, do not be afraid of them, end quote. This requires real faith, life and death faith. But as Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith it's impossible to please God. Israel had many just battles, Hebrews 11:32 through 34. I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, about David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administrated justice, quenched the fiery flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign enemies, end quote. We think of faith in regard to getting saved or going to heaven. Do we think of using our faith in God for things we could not otherwise accomplish here on earth now? What about trusting God in physical life or death battles? Psalms 20:6 through 8 says, quote, now this I know, the Lord gives victory to his anointed. He answers him from his heavenly sanctuary with the victorious power of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They're brought down to their knees and fall, but we rise up and stand firm, end quote. Chariots and horses were used as military weapons at that time. It was not wrong to have them or use them, but only wrong to trust in them instead of, quote, the victorious power of his right hand, end quote. Even so today, it's not wrong to have the greatest military weapons in the world and use them in a just battle against our nation's true enemies. But we must never presume to trust in our weapons to give us victory, for the Lord can easily bring us to our knees and fall. Quote, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory, end quote. What demonstrates that we are not trusting in our weapons, but only the Lord? It's putting forth God's servant priest to be first in addressing all soldiers on God's behalf. Quote, when you're about to go into battle, the priest shall come forward and address the army. He shall say, today you are going into battle against your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted or afraid. Do not panic or be terrified for them. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory, end quote. Today, God's servants should be put forward first to address all soldiers with God's word. Only then does God say what the officers should say to the army in Deuteronomy 25 through 9, quote, the officers shall then say to the enemy, to their army, has anyone built a new house and not yet begun to live in it? Let him go home. Or he may die in battle, and someone else may begin to live in it. Has anyone planted a vineyard and not begun to enjoy it? Let him go home, or he may die in battle and someone else enjoy it. Has anyone become engaged to a woman and not married her? Let him go home, or he may die in battle and someone else marry her. Then the officers shall add, is anyone afraid or faint-hearted? Let him go home, so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too. When the officers have finished speaking to the army, they shall appoint commanders over it. End quote. It's amazing God's attitude for young men compared to other nations' oppressive, self-serving civil laws. God did not want any young men to go to war if they just had a new house, or just planted a new vineyard, or were engaged to be married, or were frightened, faint-hearted. Then God declares what should be done to your enemy in Deuteronomy 20:10-14. When you march up to attack a city, make its people an offer of peace. If they accept and open their gates, all the people in it shall be subject to forced labor and shall work for you. But if they refuse to make peace and prepare to fight, you must attack the city. When the Lord your God delivers it unto your hand, put to the sword all the men in it. As for the women, the children, the livestock, and everything else in the city, you may take these as plunder for yourselves, and you may use the plunder the Lord your God gives you from your enemies. End quote. Now, you must remember, a true enemy is one that threatens your life. On an individual basis, that would be a person threatening or attempting to murder you. Also remember, under God's law, any individual threatening or attempting to murder you must be put to death and to have no pity. The fact that you have a whole city of men becoming mass murderers does not mean that they are any less guilty of murder and not worthy of capital punishment, does it? Of course not. But in war with an enemy city, here's what God commands. First, they would be just in attacking an enemy city, threatening to kill them and to put them to death, so that they could put to death rather the fighting men who would be murderers. But God said, first, make a peace offering with this condition. All the people in it shall be subject to forced labor and shall work for you. If the city accepts, instead of putting the men to death, the city would compensate you by becoming a tributary city by paying tax to you. This would also help keep this city from rising up again to attack you in the future. Realize over the ages, conquering nations were not so merciful. For example, the Roman Empire at times killed everyone in the city, or took everyone back to Rome to be their slaves, or some of both. Second, if a city refuses to make peace, you can either roll over and let them eventually enslave you or kill you, or do as God says, you must attack the city, end quote. Then it is to be mass capital punishment for all murderers, quote, all the men. The men are the fighters who in mass are attempting to murder you and your people. However, unlike many conquerors, they were not to kill any of the women, children, or animals. But if the women and children were left by themselves, godless peoples would move in and rape the women and the children, if not kill them. So God said, quote, if the women, the children, you may take them and the livestock and everything else back to your city, and you may use this plunder of all the goods for yourself, and you may use it as the Lord gives it to you from your enemies, end quote. Most women and children thereafter would have actually experienced a far better life living with God's people under God's law than they ever experienced living in a pagan society under ungodly men. Finally, in Deuteronomy 20:19-20, it says, when you're attacking the town and the war drags on, you must not cut down the trees. You may eat the fruit, but do not cut down the trees. Are the trees your enemies, that you should attack them? You may only cut down trees that you know are not valuable for food. Use them to make your equipment. You need to attack the enemy town until it falls.